introduction linked to the panel. I will give a very short 2-minute introduction to this panel. The idea is simply to start with past and future of Sonic Visualiser, because obviously it's a software solution most of us use at the moment or have used in the past. And so the very simple question would be, what is the link between the software on the one hand and the performance research on the other hand? So is it just that we do the things Sonic Visualiser allows us to do because the software gives us this input? And if there would be another software solution, we would just do totally different things? Or is there a linkage where we can say that the solutions presented by Sonic Visualiser really are the important points we want to ask anyway, a recording or a performance, about tempo design, about rubato, about expressiveness, and so on. And of course, this has some importance, both in kind of getting into a first review of this still young field. How did it develop? And we have heard a lot of this in the presentation already, but still more important perhaps in regarding the future of the software and the point, what would we like to build next in a way, if we would have the money and the software experience from persons who maybe then are not no musicologists, but software experts as well. And so this is really a very open panel in order to discuss where are points of frustration maybe in your current work where you think, I do not get ahead, but would need a better software solution. Or on the other hand, where have you maybe discovered something that you can do with Sonic Visualiser that no one else has done before, but still works out very fine, and so on. And to get a little input on this, I'm very pleased to welcome Mark Sandler in our group. I hope he is still with us, because he was with us. Yes, he is. So, hi, Mark. Very nice to be here. As you have heard his name already in the presentation, he is kind of one of the masterminds behind Sonic Visualiser. And I think he might give us just a short input, a 5 to 10 minute talk about the past of the software, the present state, and maybe some future solutions that you have in your head or your mind. So very pleased to welcome Mark Sandler, and please, you can give us a little input on this.
Okay, I'll start by showing my screen, and hopefully that will all work. Oh, so far so good, I think. Right, because everyone can see that, I hope.
I can see it very good.
Excellent. Okay, so as I say, a very brief and only partly accurate history, because a lot of it happened a long time ago, and I wasn't paying a lot of attention at the time. So how it started, the Centre for Digital Music was pretty new at Queen Mary. In fact, I had been a colleague of Dan's at King's College and had moved in 2001 to Queen Mary. The centre was formed about 2 years later. We were the UK university in an EU-funded project called CMAC. I forget exactly what that stands for, led from UPF by Xavier Serra, who maybe some of you know. And at that point, the whole idea of music information retrieval research was in its infancy. And incidentally, I prefer the word music informatics research, because most of it isn't about retrieving music or information, but nevertheless, that's a minor detail. And what happened, people in my team, people around the world, that is to say, those in computer science or like me in electronic engineering, my specialism, my background is in an area called signal processing. So what people did was they would say, oh, this is an interesting problem. Let me come up with an algorithm to try and solve that problem. Let me write some code for it, probably back then in C++ or something. Let's say for onset detection, in other words, when a musical note starts. And this is what the sort of process they have to go through. Firstly, create something, this ground truth, and I have capitalized it because it has become a sort of lodestone. People are absolutely fixated on the concept of ground truth, which 75% of that is a really good idea, but there's a little bit of danger that comes in with being fixated on ground truth all the time. But in other words, what happens is some experts annotate some existing data. Then you run your algorithm, you measure the performance against the ground truth, you create a table of results, you put it in a paper and publish it, and then you throw away the code and do something else. And that really seemed to be a very bad idea, because I'm quite a pragmatic person, and I just, it didn't seem quite right. So that's sort of where we started. Oh, and then, yes, people lost interest in what they had done in the first place and did something else instead. It's all a bit unsatisfactory. I am exaggerating slightly to make the point, but it's pretty much the truth. So what was wrong with this, if you didn't realize? Firstly, the concept of the table of results was everything and little else mattered. Well, one other thing mattered, which was, and it's still today the truth, the situation, which is that my table of results show a 1% better performance than the last person's. That's what mattered. And it was wasteful of human effort in writing code to do something that somebody might find use for, somebody like Dan. And the code was never used for anything practical. But most importantly, from my perspective as a scientist, nobody ever cared about or knew where the algorithm failed. So my algorithm might find 75% of onsets within a 10 millisecond window, and somebody else's might find 72% or 78%. But there were clearly going to be differences in which ones we found and which ones they found. And what could you learn from that? Well, people weren't interested. And that means you don't learn proper lessons from the research you're doing. And this is still true today. I sort of, I didn't hear all of Dan's talk, but I'm glad I heard the bit where, at least the end part, where he was wagging a finger at artificial intelligence a bit. I do the same. I have to duck more than he would, because these people think, well, we're in the same kind of community. Anyway, it's still true today. If you were in my position and read a deep learning music informatics research paper, you would see a table of results, a statement that they've improved on the state of the art, and that's the end of the story, without any understanding of where things have gone wrong. And of course, in music, things can go wrong either very badly, or they can go wrong quite benignly, but it's still accounted for as if it is just wrong. So what was the solution? The solution was Sonic Visualiser. We formed a small core team of 3, and it was me sort of leading the concept, but Chris Canham, who we'd employed on the CMAP project, who is the chief and basically only architect of the software. And I think it was Sama Abdullah who was with us at the time. I'm fairly certain it was Sama, but that's why I say it's an inaccurate history. Sama now works for ByteDance, I think. Very, very good scientist, actually. So we discussed what could be built and how to do it. And what we decided was, actually, I've just got to get, yeah, I had the thumbnails of people's faces over the words. What we decided was that a plug-in architecture was absolutely key, because 2 things. We wanted other people to use the framework for their own research outcomes, and this was less successful than I'd hoped. And also to make it easy for us to add new features and algorithms without, for example, completely rebuilding the software and recompiling it every time. So it was definitely successful on that second front. Oh, no, I'm not managing to. Oh, there we go. So we called the plugin VAMP, and it has no meaning. There is nothing for V or A or M or P. Chris came up with the word and he liked it. So that's what we have. I think it was me that came up eventually with the name of Sonic Visualiser after an awful lot of debate, because as we know, well, maybe you don't, because most of you perhaps aren't software engineers, calling things the right name is almost more important than finding out what it does. So, and then Chris built it. I did have a quick look back at the Sonic Visualiser website yesterday to find that the very first video was in 2006. So I expect all of this was happening around 2005. So the major developments, big one, perhaps not noticeable to many over the history, was a shift to 64-bit processor architectures. And that caused a major upheaval in how the software was designed, hopefully without too much perceived problems. We then shifted, or Chris shifted, to what we call in computer science a client-server architecture, which had the name Piper. It doesn't really matter, but the idea was that, well, basically it was driven by the next idea to have a browser-based tool, or browser or tablet-based tool, and then you would potentially have the actual hard mathematics going on a different processor, maybe on a server, whereas the visualization was on the tool you held in your hand. We only prototyped that. It didn't get any further, I'm afraid. Then, of course, we have the siblings, Sonic Annotator, which is a bare bones VAMP host for batch processing. And we've deployed this several times firstly with a company that doesn't exist anymore in London. Well, the aim for that was always to do large scale analysis of music archives or collections or whatever, in order to understand interesting things about collections rather than just individual pieces. Tony, which I saw a comment about, which is for the analysis and display of speech and sung voice. And lastly, Sonic Lineup, which compares several performances of the same piece. And assuming everything works, in a second, I'll show you a short video of that. I think actually, is that my last? No. Okay, so this is my last slide. Regrets and then pleasures. So what do I regret? I regret that we didn't actually finish a browser tablet version. We didn't really have enough people to work on it and maintain the full-blown Sonic Visualiser and so on. Now, this is perhaps the biggest regret of all, that we have never connected with our community of users. Now, I'm meeting you people for the very first time, and I'm overwhelmed that there's some 40-odd people in Germany alone, and I'm guessing that you're all musicologists. So that is a very kind of small subset of the possibilities, and here you all are very keen on Sonic Visualiser, which is wonderful. There was a reluctance in the team, not from me, to do things like have people register to download it. I won't go into why, but that it has its. There are pros and cons to not doing that. I believe in the end we've suffered by not really knowing who our community is, not being able to, for example, appeal to the community to help support it financially. And maybe we would have organised our own conferences before now. That would have been good, but that didn't happen. A wider uptake of VAMP developers would have been nice. The BBC have produced one or two. Javier Serra's team have produced one or two. I think that's basically it. On the plus side, pleasure. It's been a tremendous calling card for Queen Mary and the Centre for Digital Music. So many people around the world meet me and probably my colleagues, and they say, oh, Sonic Visualiser. So they almost know the product before the software, whatever, before they know us individually, which is amazing. It's enabled more great research than I'm ever going to know about. I've known about Dan, and I know that other musicologists use it. I know, for example, that companies like Native Instruments use it. So companies who are in the music technology area use it for their research, but it's only anecdotal. And so there's an awful lot of use of it around the world. And then, of course, a really great pleasure is to be invited today to reminisce, which I you know, just to reflect on what has happened over the past 15 or more years. There is another regret, which is that Chris Canham no longer works for Queen Mary, which is a story in itself. He left, I think, in November last year. So we can perhaps debate in a minute what the future of Sonic Visualiser is. I'm now going to try and show you this video, if I can. Hopefully I'm still here. It looks like I'm still sharing. Oh no, I'm probably not showing the right thing.
Maybe you go out and then go in again with the video.
Yeah. I will when I find out where I've got. Oh, here we are.
The stop button is
so
on the upside.
Stop share. Yes, that's what we'll do. Stop share. Go to this, and there we are. Thank you for your advice. So hopefully you can see the browser window. I can make it a bit bigger, I think. There we go. The browser window. Here is the Sonic lineup page on. So this is the Sonic Visualiser download page. I guess you know more about this than I do, because I'm not a big user. But here is Sonic lineup. If you click through, you get this empty thing, which is confused me a lot yesterday when I thought I knew where the video was. But in fact, the video is on Vimeo. And I don't know if you will hear the audio direct. Let's see if that does anything. Record, share sound. Yeah, if I do that, that should do it. And so I'll just play this. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully just you'll see my face somehow. So just a few words on Sonic lineup. It was released quite recently. Oh, wait a minute. Vimeo is automatically playing another video. It was released quite recently. It's based on some work done a long time ago by Simon Dixon when he was with Gerhard Widmer on basically aligning beats in pieces of music. And the idea there is you can import several versions, several recordings of the same piece and do a comparative listening. That's basically it. There's a little bit more to it as to what you can visualize. You saw there some of the possibilities. I don't know how many people have downloaded it, again, because Chris is quite vehement about not really keeping track on who uses the free software. It's hard for me to say. So I think I'll stop talking there, and we can start the panel.
Well, thank you very much for this illuminating insight into the past, present, and another software in a way. So I would say we do the same thing as with the keynote. You can write something into the chat, a question, or just that you want to ask a question. This is, of course, a unique opportunity where a software developer and, in a way, the guys who use it and meet for the first time at the moment when software is already quite old, in a way. So it's really still in use in Germany in musicology. So do we have questions? So maybe Mate would like, or Christian Utz on Sonic lineup. So please, Christian Utz.
Thank you, Mark, for this presentation. I have already seen the Sonic lineup, and I think it's a fantastic improvement of the match plugin, it seems, because we try to use the match plugin for larger sound files, and in most cases it failed. So it did not really perform an error-free alignment. So my question would be, is there any future development scheduled on this in order to implement it as an update of the match plugin and a Sonic Visualiser, so that we can work with larger sound files, align them, and this would make it so much easier to, transfer the markers from one recording to another. And so this would really a fantastic improvement, I think.
I have to answer any question. Is there any plan for the future? Unfortunately, we have no resource for that. So we do have some internal funding in Queen Mary that we can apply to for what's called impact. So clearly this isn't I don't know if in Germany the word impact is used in this funny way that governments like, but it is. Which we could apply for, but it's not at the top of our agenda, individual people's agendas. One colleague, George Fazekas, has said he would, but he always says he will for many things, and he will one day. I think it's a really serious point about how a community can continue any of these projects. I wish I knew the answer. I mean, I suspect that the best thing would be for there to be an EU project, probably built on musicology rather than on technology, and that had enough funding within it to work with this, because all of the Sonic Visualiser family, they're all open source. All the software is open source, except in some circumstances. That was another reason for the plugin, was so that some people, if they wanted to, could protect their intellectual property and not release the code for a plugin. So, but anyway, apart from that, the core, the heart of Sonic Visualiser is open source, which means anyone can develop it with or without Queen Mary's permission, anything like that. But really, what would be great if somebody had some ideas as a result of this meeting, and I'd be very happy to engage with whoever it is. Has that answered the question? There are plans for plans, but no plans. Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Yes, yeah. We actually have submitted a new proposal where we have integrated the idea of updating the match plugin. So in case this proposal would be accepted, so we hope that we could contribute at least a part of it. So
that would be very good. Just let me reminded me. So did you say using Sonic lineup didn't import large enough files, or match within Sonic Visualiser?
Well, in Sonic lineup, we cannot make any annotations, right? So we need, of course, to annotate the files and then copy these annotations to other files. So in order to simplify this analysis of large corpora of things, that's the challenge.
I see.
Faced.
Okay, right. I understand the problem. I could see a way to presumably an annotation on one version could be inherited across other versions. So you only need to annotate once.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly that's.
It's funny that, because I've got a student, one of my students who's looking at violin performances. I thought he managed to do something like that because he was faced with a similar problem, but it's possible he wasn't looking at whole pieces. Maybe we should have an email conversation about this somehow, to see, for me to find out exactly what he did and so on.
Thank you. Yes, I will write to you. Thank you.
So I see some commentary on the chat, but possibly not a direct question. So maybe if you have your here, Mark Sandler, maybe you just comment on the future of Sonic Visualiser, since you yourself implicated this in your very inspiring short presentation. So is there a future for Sonic Visualiser? Is it still updated? Is it still out on the web to download? For how long? And so, or has musicology in a way to fears that it might not work on new browser applications and so on?
So I did notice, and Chris told me that he did an update privately. So there's an update, I think, posted in January this year. So that's clearly since he left Queen Mary. I think he receives emails or something like that. So he responded to that, but he will have to earn a living somehow. So how much time he'll be able to devote to the future of Sonic Visualiser, I don't know. A major challenge always comes when either the underlying architecture of a computer changes. So everything went from 32-bit to 64-bit several years ago, and when an operating system changes. So I think there was some big issue around macOS changing and the way you had to register, plug it, also stuff I switched off, but I know there were, so as things stand, it will go on until it stops, which I think is very sad. But I honestly don't know what to do about it. That's my feeling. So I suspect it will carry on for a good year or more. I don't foresee major changes in operating systems or computer architectures in that period. But 10 years from now, I doubt it will work unless you keep an old computer. Which is one of the reasons I was so interested to join today, was to see if there was some way to find a path through.
So maybe people who have written commentary would like to comment a little further. For instance, Karin Martinson, about the way how to get new funding for this, or for a replacement, or maybe Mate with his commentaries on plugin versions, or are there any other questions? Please feel free. Do we have any commentary? So I might go on because we have still a little time. So we have here, in a way, people who care about software solutions for musicologists, which is not a convenient thing in the first place, that a small area of science like musicology still gets its own developed software solutions. So basically, my questions would be, on the whole community, what is your wish list? So what should we try to build next? Would you say that Sonic lineup is the things that you really can use, or is there something else? Are there any commentaries or questions on these aspects on performance studies? So I might turn it. Yes, Daniel Leech-Wilkinson and Christian Zwag. So I would say we start with Christian Zwag and then Daniel Leech-Wilkinson. Please, Christian.
Hello. I have a question about this Sonic lineup. It's the first time I've heard of it today, I must confess. And it looks fascinating because it looks like it might be useful in a problem that I am confronted with more than maybe others on this panel. I'm not a musicologist, but I work as a transfer and restoration engineer for historic recordings from 78s and cylinders and stuff. And I often have the problem that I have several sources for the same performance and the same recording. And it would be a great benefit if one would be able to synchronize them precisely. That is precisely enough that they are actually in phase with each other, so that one can switch back and forth and mix between them to eliminate defects in individual copies, or bring down the noise level by averaging several copies of a noisy 78, because the scratches and the graininess will be different in every copy, while the music is the same. And I have not yet found any software that manages this reliably, because the precision is enormous that is required to keep a 3-minute recording in step exactly enough, plus minus one sample or so.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be a step in this direction, and maybe it would be useful developing it in that way, not only as a musicologist tool, but also as a sound processing tool.
Very interesting point. I would certainly invite you to try it. Chris would know how precisely the alignment works, but I don't.
At least it should work well enough, I imagine, to determine whether two copies are the same take of a recording or not.
Yes,
it is whether you have, if you have two very similar recordings or similar sounding recordings, or those that share a matrix number or something, and to check whether they are actually the same performance or two run-throughs of the same music.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
That should show up by the connection lines, the corresponding lines, either being all straight or moving around a bit.
Yeah, you saw those lines, which are supposed to align.
I definitely will try that. And,
yeah, absolutely.
I think it might be interesting to publicize it among record collectors and record researchers in that way. And that might open another community that might find the program useful, because there's always those endless discussions about alternative takes and things, and sometimes they are just remixes of the same performance, and then people say, well, it sounds differently, it can't be the same performance. And I say, no, they only added some drums, or they added some strings or something like that, and it's still the same basic track. And this software should be able to show that unequivocally.
It should do. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we did a little brainstorming around potential use in recording studios for novel pieces. So, when you have a different takes of things, you might compare them.
Or maybe even synchronize one vocal take with another backing track or something like that.
I think that would
that isn't perfectly aligned in timing, to realign them and force one track on the timing of another. That should be
that would be more the core.
Yeah.
The core algorithm that's buried inside, which Mate has correctly identified as match, which is
the match is the first step, at least in this direction, and it's
that's
very time consuming and difficult to do manually.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to see that some software in this way exists already. And
so maybe Mark Sandler can comment on this, and then Daniel Leech-Wilkinson's question as next.
Yeah.
Well, I think I did comment really, other than to say, again, but if I make too many invitations to say I'll have conversations with people, I might get overwhelmed. But again, if I can, I think possibly I might put you in touch with Chris Cannon directly. That would be perhaps a good thing, because he will be, number one, interested in it, and also potentially with Simon Dixon, who is the inventor, if you like, of the match algorithm that is at the heart of this.
I see.
So yeah.
So we would go on with Daniel Leech-Wilkinson.
I'll be happy to be in touch by email or in other ways.
So please, Daniel Leech-Wilkinson.
Thank you. Well, actually, I wanted to pick up the question with which you began, which was whether we study music in certain ways because Sonic Visualiser makes it easy, or whether we use Sonic Visualiser to find out things we want to know about music. And it's a complicated mixture of those two things, I think. So again, it's important to be aware of what one's doing. But I have noticed over the last 5 years or so that wherever in the world I go to a conference, there is always at least one talk by somebody who's using Sonic Visualiser. It's extraordinary the way it's become an international standard tool. And so the idea that it might suddenly not be available within just a few years is really very bad news for an awful lot of people. And I really hope that somebody who has access to international research funding will feel strongly enough about this to want to put together a project. This is not as easy for people in Britain as it used to be, sadly. But I hope that somebody will want to do it and feel inspired by this conference to want to put together a team to continue its development, because for all its idiosyncrasies and weaknesses and limitations, it's a wonderful tool that really has changed the way that we study musical performance. So I just want to put in a plea that something may come out of this. Thank you.
Okay, if there are not any more questions, we are perfectly in time, which is the biggest surprise of the morning so far. And then I would maybe ask Frithjof as our technical host to guide us through the short break we will have now. And then we'll continue at 11 o'clock.